recently we ran a few surveys on young Muslims as to why they stopped practicing Islam, or why they stopped going to the masjid, or why they stopped attending Islamic lectures. And the most common thread we found is that they had a negative experience, right? This is the most common trend we found, not in South Africa, in the entire world, right? So this is a survey that went out to youngsters in the USA, in the UK, in the Arab countries, and in South Africa, and in many other countries. And we found a very common trend, that very often when a young person was treated harshly in the masjid, that became their view of the masjid, that became their view of religious people, and this pushed them away from the religion. So for example, a youngster may go to the masjid and he may not be aware of the dress code for that masjid, for example, or the etiquette of that masjid. Or maybe it's a young lady who, she's still struggling with hijab. She's not aware yet of what is proper hijab. And someone was rude to them, somebody was harsh to them, somebody publicly humiliated them because of a sin or a mistake or something they did not understand. And because of that, they get put off coming to the masjid, and they end up drifting away from the religion. This is a very common trend found throughout the Muslim world today, that when people are harsh towards the youngsters, it chases them away from the religion, it alienates them from the religion, right? So this hadith about the importance of being compassionate towards the youth, it is very important that everyone practices it. And where does this advice come from? Psychologically, those of us who are older need to understand something about young people. And this is something we tend to forget. Young people are still growing. They are still developing their ideas. They are still making mistakes. They are still gaining life experience. They're going to slip up. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to get things wrong. And when we expect perfection from them, we make it so much harder for them to learn from their mistakes and to grow. Because we make life unnecessarily difficult for them. And we do this at every level of life, right? So for example, when it comes to religion, many of us expect teenagers to be more pious than the awliya. Right? Let's be frank about this. Many parents expect their teenage children to be at the awliya level of piety. And when they don't see that from their children, they have this anger and this hatred towards their children. And we see it also with school, right? That some of us expect perfect A's every term for every subject. And then the kids can't live up to these expectations. And we know what happens in our community when the kids can't live up to these expectations. So compassion is so important. And where compassion comes from is understanding that someone younger than you does not have the life experience you have. They don't have the wisdom that you have. They are going to make mistakes. They're going to get things wrong. And that is okay as long as they are learning from their mistakes, as long as they are growing from their mistakes, as long as they are able to extract lessons from their mistakes and gain wisdom through making those mistakes. But when we close the doors to making any mistakes, then what happens is we leave them no room for improvement. We make them feel like, you're either perfect or you're out of the fold of Islam. You're either perfect or you're not good enough to be my son. We create this level of expectations that's impossible to live up to.